Hi, I'm Zach Kazan, managing editor at Worn & Wound, and this is another episode of Inside the Collection. I'm joined today by Zach Weiss, one of the founders of Worn & Wound, and Kat Shoulders, head of content. So we've got a lot of Seikos on the board here, a crazy number of Seikos, even for us. And that's what this episode's all about. It's all about your personal collections of Seiko watches and the stories these watches have told in your collecting lives over the years.
Seiko has been there from the beginning of sort of my mechanical watch journey. The diversity of what they come out with continually kind of attracts me. Like every year there's at least one or two watches that are strange and different in certain ways that will make them, potentially fit into my collection. And then lo and behold, I end up with many over the years. And honestly, this is only what's left kind of a thing. Like there's been many that have come in and out. It's also then not including like a Grand Seiko, which, is actually probably the Seikos at this point I wear the most. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot here from ones I got 13 years ago to ones I got last year.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning, because I think it's really interesting to kind of look at the earliest Seikos in your collection. Those would be these Seiko 5s, right?
Yeah, so the Seiko 5, like SNK models, were really sort of where I started with a lot of my watch collecting, frankly, mechanical watch collecting specifically. So like 2011, famously, you could pick these up on Amazon for like $60, and it seemed almost too good to be true. Great size, mechanical watch, Seiko brand that obviously familiar with, even if I was sort of just first getting into this hobby in great depth. And it became actually the second watch I believe we ever reviewed on Worn & Wound. So one of the first watches I ever really dug into to review. At one point I had 4 of these. So I had the sand dial, the black dial, the blue dial, which is somewhere, I think my girlfriend might have it, and then a green dial, which was basically purchased off of me at a wind-up watch fair early on. Somebody really wanted my watch. And then it turned into the Seiko 5 limited edition we did for our 10th anniversary, which like literally sort of brings these two watches together, these two colors, and adds some textures and other things. But it's a very significant watch for me.
It's very cool to see the old SNK side by side with the limited edition, because you really do see like how they're tied together and the way that they connect. It's very, very cool. Kat, you have also a connection to Seiko. How does Seiko fit into your collecting?
Yeah, it definitely was a gateway for me. So the SKX013, which I have here, was my first ever automatic watch. This was a watch that I hunted down for a long time. The SKX series is a very popular series, or was a very popular series, now discontinued actually. But it was sort of like the SNK, sort of the entry point for the dive watch in Seiko's collection. I searched high and low for a mid-sized watch at the time, which 5-6 years ago was kind of difficult to find.
Yeah.
And this watch fit the bill. And in a lot of ways, this watch is what started my collection journey. So it's got a special place in my collection. I will never get rid of this little watch. I love it. It's nice and jangly. It's got that.
I can hear the jangle from here.
The 5-link bracelet that we all know and love from Seiko.
I mean, Seiko divers too, I think, have a very special place, in the hearts of a lot of collectors. Zach, you have a selection of divers here. Talk about the importance of Seiko divers, not just to you, but sort of to like the watch landscape at large. It really it's hard to overstate the importance of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the 007 is, I think, even more so than the Seiko 5 probably. A lot of people's first like foray into mechanical watches, specifically dive watches, also watch modding. They tend to be really important to people who have them because you got them early on, or you received them as a gift, and then you've worn them forever, and like they just hold an emotional value that's far exceeds their financial value. They have a lore to them. I mean, Seiko divers go back to the 60s. They've had their own design language. Basically the whole time, the 62 Moss-based models were maybe the most sort of generic looking. They were, the first ones, they had that sort of classic skin diver case, but from there, like, you have the like 1968 Marine Master sort of styled ones where they got these harsh sides, and then you got the crown down. They just had their own language, which separates them from that Swiss timeline of watches, which, I think for me personally just makes them interesting. You can go for the sub, or you can go for this sort of slightly strange family of watches from Seiko, and then they have these wild designs. So the 62 Mus kind of sober. You have tuna-based watches here. I mean, this is not a traditional tuna. This is nicknamed the everyday tuna. It's sort of the affordable automatic tuna from a few years ago. Absolutely love the look of this one, but the shrouded cases, like totally kind of strange and exotic. And then you have the The turtle-based things, and this is the mini turtle, not the classic turtle, but they're just special in their way.
Yeah,
I love the nicknames too. We can probably spend a completely have a whole another video just on the nicknames of these watches, which are usually fan derived. Kat, have you owned any of these watches?
I've owned many of those. Yeah, Seiko is a watch brand that's sort of like comes and goes through my collection. I'll have 10 at one time, or I'll have 2. So right now I'm down to 2. But I've owned the Turtle, I've owned the Safari, I've owned, like, I can't even count how many that I've had in my collection.
Had a Willard for a while.
Had a Captain
yeah,
Willard,
the
yeah,
Willard,
too, which I kind of regret getting rid of that one. May come back in my collection.
Yeah, there's a boomerang effect. Yeah, there was a while after I got this one. It's like a 6R, sort of a $1,000-ish Prospex diver, where I was like, oh, if I get another one, it's just the same watch.
Yeah.
Like the Willard is a good example of that. But I'm sort of back to wanting another one at this point, just as like a
but they're different. They're different
they
enough,
are different.
and like there is like something cool about collecting Seiko dive watches in particular that I really love. The case designs are different. The dials are different. I love their design language, and even though they're not perfect, there is like this kind of character in the imperfection of Seiko, in my opinion.
Would you agree that 62 Moss case design is kind of like the signature Seiko dive watch?
Maybe yes, maybe no. There were a lot of sort of dive watches with that sort of skin diver sort of style with the crown at 3, the sort of closed off lugs. I think of Let's Shoot Originals, like that sort of style.
Yeah.
Once the crown got to 4, that's to me where they really became Seiko flavored. These are just gorgeous.
I mean, that looks so good
this
on that strap too. Like anyone who says you shouldn't put a diver on a strap, should take a look at.
When I go diving, I take it off.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's always been on a leather strap.
As you should. Kat, what's the other watch that you've picked out over there?
Yeah, I've got one that's very similar to my SKX, and this is the SSK. This is the Seiko 5 GMT that they came out with, and I bought the very bold yellow dial version of this. So I actually loved the yellow dial version of the SKX that was long discontinued a long time ago, and so they brought that same colorway out for the Seiko 5 GMT series. And then on the Jubilee, that's a little less jangly, a little bit more refined now, which I really like. It's a watch that I feel safe traveling with nowadays, especially that I can throw on the wrist when I'm on vacation and stuff. So it's got 100-meter water resistance, all the things you'd find in a normal Seiko 5. It's just a perfect little GMT watch.
The color's great. It kind of lets you get some of the Seiko funkiness, I think, in a more traditional sort of profile with a really useful complication. Zach, you've got a couple of watches here that are funky on a different level. You've got. Why don't you tell us about these watches, which you've talked about before, but the Alien watch, the Ripley, I think is what we've got here.
So this is the Ripley re-edition from several years ago, not the original 7A28 model, which is really cool, and one that I still sort of lust after. That rabbit hole of finding the originals. Originally released in the 1980s, it was designed by Giorgio Giugiaro, the famous car designer. Really distinct, language that he used. And this and other models designed by him ended up being used in the Alien films. This one, I'd say, is just the most famous because of its extremely strange pusher arrangement. Huge Aliens fan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you both are. So the second they came out with this re-edition, it was like, I just had to have this because it's like, I'm emotionally connected to it in so many ways. And I've never been afraid of wearing a very strange watch. But it's one when I put it on, I'm just like, I could rock that. This kind of brutalist, dystopian design. Very into it.
That might be my favorite Seiko in your collection.
Yeah. I can get that. Yeah.
It's really cool. It's probably like my favorite movie watch maybe of all time. And then lastly, you have kind of maybe the weirdest Seiko on the table currently.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's probably been featured a few times now in our various conversations about weird watches. So this is one of the Seiko Sportura kinetic chronographs from the 90s. I would call this a grail watch of mine from when I was a teenager, and I had no concept of any of those things. But I would see it in the Tourneau at the time, the Tourneau time machine in the 50s, where I'd just go there with my dad to enjoy looking at watches, and this would be in the case. It was a very expensive Seiko for the time, it was around $2,000, so it was certainly not a watch that I was buying as a teenager, nor were my parents buying for me. Last year, I was just like, why don't I have that? I bought a lot of other ridiculous things, like watches, this is sort of a dream watch of mine. So I went for it, titanium version of this, which is extra cool. I just absolutely love the arrangement of this. I love that people don't like it too. There's a lot of really cool things just about it. It's got a really incredible movement. It's notoriously complex and expensive to service, which unfortunately this one needs to be serviced. I've probably said that for last. Well,
We've done a few
one
videos
thing
with
at a
this watch,
time.
and
One
it
thing at
always
a
needs to
time.
be serviced. It still needs to be.
You know, it's one of these things. It's almost like it's a sculpture for me, which
Yeah.
I love it to be more functional. I love to wear it more, but it sits on my desk and honestly acts as like a piece of inspiration.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it just for that.
It's really distinctive. I love the modern reinterpretation of this
Yeah.
watch that Seiko released last year. So we've got a lot of sports watches. We got these like a couple of oddballs here. Seiko is obviously larger than just their their sports watch categories. Have you guys owned Seiko Presage watches or been exposed to that line? What do you think of some of these other kind of like corners of the Seiko collection, and how do they relate to the sporty stuff?
I haven't owned the Presage line. I have several Alpinists that I've gone through over the years, which is another line that I really, really love from Seiko. But I don't know, have you owned any of the Presage?
I did technically own a Presage. It was shortly after they released the Crown Chronograph inspired line. So this was sort of early on in COVID. It had this beautiful teal dial with the black bezel. I had it for a while. It was just, it was one of those times of sitting at home, just kind of moving watches around every couple of months. So,
Yeah.
and unfortunately got the cut there, but it was a very nice watch. But there's been a few Presages that have really caught my attention. You know, they do like some porcelain dials and enamel dials. There's been the occasional spring drive in there, which has been pretty cool. Some higher end finishing as well. The King Seikos are the ones that I come like dangerously close to getting.
Those are really
as
nice.
far as their dressier watches, but just haven't gone there.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think like we see all the variety here, in just a couple of different categories, and Seiko still has all these other avenues. You can still explore even after years in the hobby. Just kind of an endless variety.
Yeah, and it's a rabbit hole that I love. I could see myself getting into like JDM model Seikos at some point and just collecting those, which I think is really fun. But yeah, if you scour the forums, like there's so much information out there and so many models that just like capture my attention. But I love the brand.
There are currently 2 current model Seikos that I'm just like, ugh, God, like what's stopping me? Just like
you care to share?
Well, the one is the Solar Prospects that came out last year, the Solar Chronograph that resembles this. I was blown away that they brought that out. I feel like because it's so weird, it's just not going to be there forever, kind of a thing. And they're really nice. Like we have had them around the office. And then the new Alpinist GMT, which just came in. Good. So every now and then a Seiko will come in from a generation. I remember that feeling that this way, that the finishing feels like they've just stepped it up.
Yeah.
And that watch has beautiful brushing on it that has almost a slightly pearlescent quality to it. And it was just, we took it out of the box and it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like that is gorgeous and that makes it dangerous. So.
Well, thank you both for coming on. It's always fun to get a look inside your collections, and I appreciate you sharing all of your Seikos with us today.
Thanks for watching, and we had a great time showing you our collection. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and let us know your comments below.